right, it's time to talk about an album that I've been looking forward to more than a lot of other albums that came out this year. And we've had a lot of records that I was looking forward to. This was kind of like the first big one of this second quarter. And so, yeah. Now that I've had enough time to dive in and really digest, let's find out what I finally think about this record. So let's dive in. Voidkind by Dune. And I remember when I first reviewed their second record and I kept calling these guys Divine because I didn't realize that the V was actually supposed to be a U because that's how they do. That's how they do. You would think with a website such as Songs from Arrakis that I would have put two and two together, since Dune is one of my favorite books of all time. But hey, here we are. So Dune is a 5-piece progressive rock band coming from Edinburgh, Scotland. Gotta love them Scots. Founded in 2013, I believe. And yeah, as I've mentioned before, they take their name from Frank Herbert's Dune, which it's getting a lot of notoriety because of those two films that have been coming out lately. Now, I got into them with their second album, and I'm going to try this. Edaman Inca, I believe is how you pronounce it. I think I got that one. I feel pretty proud of myself for that. And absolutely love that record. It was my favorite record of 2021, the year that it dropped, because the more I listened to it, the more I absolutely loved it. I then went back and I listened to their first full-length record, which is, of course, Asherin. What sets Dune apart, I think, from a lot of these bigger sounding, like not quite sludge bands, but definitely like the progressive, intense, like brutal prog in that case, is that they are the masters of the build-ups and the payoffs. The thing that I love about Edaman Inca is their ability to like stretch out these passages to then bring it to the next level, and then bring it to the next level, and then bring it to the next level. And every time you think that, okay, we've gotten to the plateau, right? We've gotten to the peak, the apex of wherever the song is going, they bring it up another level. And that was something that only really like came about and made itself apparent after a number of listens, because to the untrained ear of Dune's music, it just kind of felt like a single spiraling track, you know, something that would just keep going and keep going and keep going, not realizing that each passage was built up from the last, almost like, you know, this really interesting MC Escher like staircase, right? That just kind of kept going and kept going, not realizing that it was in fact a spiral going up. And so I was thoroughly excited for Voidkind, because anything new from Dune I'm going to listen to, and I think that's going to be the case moving on and moving forward. Now, I did need to temper my expectations, because, you know, there was a part of me that was wishing this was going to be Edaman Inca Part 2, and I knew it wasn't, you know, and I didn't want it to be. Even though there was a part of me that really did, I didn't want it just to be a paint by numbers second, you know, a cut and paste Part 2. I wanted them to evolve. I wanted them to continue to develop as musicians and as artists. And that is what we got. Is it better? Is it on the same playing field? I don't know. I'm still digesting it, even though we've been like 2 or 3 weeks since it's been released. And I can say that where I was at this point of my listen of Edaman Inca, I was a little bit more excited about that album than I am of this one. And I do need to realize that I have to temper my expectations about that, but I'm also just speaking of where I am currently. The album itself still has those really juicy, really meaty, really dense build-ups and payoffs, you know, and it's sprinkled throughout the runtime of this record. We have a number of tracks that are into the 7 and 8 minutes, but I think one of the things that I miss on this record that the last album had was those really long stretches of music, you know, the 10 to 12 minute really stretching of their legs and playing out. And here we have, you know, 8, 7, and 9 minute tracks, and they're all really good, but they're also kind of sandwiched in and around these 5 and 4 and a couple of 1 or less than 1 and a couple of 6 minute tracks, you know. And I think because this is a little bit more choppy, a little bit more episodic, it's not as easy to stretch your legs and to get into a lot of these passages. Now, that being said, as I mentioned, these passages still slap, and I love how a lot of these passages do flow from one track to the next. It is a little bit interesting that it is found on the first two tracks and the last two tracks, but both are held very differently, and this was something that was very similar to the last album as well. The first track of Summa Blasphema, as well flowing right into Eleonora, I believe is how I pronounce those two, creating about 13, 14 minutes worth of music, really does open up and showcase that the band is back. We're playing with a lot of those same styles that I absolutely love. It's the build-ups, it's the payoffs, it's that really heavy, really aggressive, really bombastic style of music that I absolutely love when it comes to this kind of group. And I think the track that really solidifies this the most is one of the shorter tracks of Reaching for Telos, the third track, and it's almost like the single from a group where it's aggressive, it's heavy, it's menacing. You have those screams, you have those growls that I really appreciate from these boys, and you have moments of those softer feels, I guess, on this track as well. It's always those longer stretches of sounds that I always really like Reliquary, which again showcases their ability to build up, plateau, and build up and plateau and build up and plateau. Even at like just under 8 minutes of music, we have like 3 or 4 really interesting passages where they start off the track, they build it up, they plateau a little bit, then they build it up, and then they plateau it, and then they bring it back down near the like latter third of this track to have the atmosphere, have the kind of wandering the landscape a little bit, and then it's just that big boof, that big like knocking down the doors with that big chug that I love about this, and that was something that I absolutely adored within this track. It's interesting because once we get to there, we have this little bit of a lull between Path of Dust, Sarmate, and Path of Ether, and all together, like, this is maybe about 6 minutes worth of music that I just feel is a little bit of a, I don't know, I don't get all that excited over, and I'm just kind of wondering like where they go. Now, luckily, it does pick up with Abode to the Perfect Soul, and once again, we're back with that usual bombastic, that very aggressive, very intense playing styles. The guitars really are the masterwork here. I love the sounds that they're producing on here. At the same time, they are soothing but aggressive. They're sharp, and yet they're very sludgy. And it's something that's very akin to a Dune sound. When you hear those guitars, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm dealing with a Dune song here. And it's interesting. The 9th track of, I think it's Palorama, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm probably wrong on that one. It's the track that kind of sticks out a little bit as a sore thumb. It's a little bit more atmospheric. It's a little bit more moody. And I just feel as if, I don't want to say it's wasted space, but there's a moment in here that I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, where's that big payoff? Because it's a little bit, as I mentioned, moody. It's a little bit more somber. But I was always waiting for it to just kind of let go, just to let loose. Now, luckily, we definitely find that on the last track of Cobalt Sun Necropolis, Necropolis, I got it. Longest song, almost 10 minutes, and this is the Dune music that I love. You got those big, meaty sounds, the gradual builds to a great plateau, that gradual builds into another great plateau, and this is the style of Dune that I love. I think that this ends on a massive high note. And I do find it very interesting that, they're using kind of like a 90s grunge, like Radiohead kind of style within the transition from Palorama and this one, and then it fizzles out in the same kind of way, kind of like this magnetic tape that's been distorted beyond any kind of recognition. And it's a very interesting and fun way to end the album, and you've got maybe about 10, 15 seconds of this weird kind of ambient sound that they're playing with here. So Yeah. In the end, what I will say, Voidkind was an album that I was really looking forward to. And I have to admit, I was disappointed with upon first listen. But as any true prog fan will attest, the more I listened to it, the more I got into it. I'm kind of feeling the same way that I was feeling with Fauna from Haken last year, where upon the first couple of listens, I wasn't all that excited for it. But the more I listened to it, the more the album showed itself and showed its true colors, and the more I ended up loving it. And I feel as if that is where I am at currently with Voidkind. I don't think I'll ever get to the same level that their past records have. This might be a little bit of a dip within their quality, but I mean, when you're working with an album that the band has been playing from up here and the album's about here, like, you're still getting a fantastic and an amazing outfit. So yeah, in the end, I'll say Voidkind by Dune is one that I would absolutely download. Again, you're going to find some really good, aggressive, bombastic, very brutal death metal, progressive rock music. And if you're a fan of Dune, I don't know. You'll most likely like it. It's just whether or not you're going to find that it's that same level of caliber, that same level of oomph that I felt with the first two records. And hey, if this is the first dip, then I'm really excited to see what they learn from this record to then go and apply it to their next record. So yeah, a little bit of a dip in quality, but still one that I admire and one that I'll most likely be listening to throughout the year, because that's just how Dune is to me. You know, they've really quickly become one of my favorite death metal groups out there. So yeah. Anyway, that's what I've got for Voidkind from Dune. What did you guys think about this record? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. That's all I got for you guys today. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.